name is Llanes. I'm from Ormond Beach, Florida. Got into motorcycling, at a very early age, like every young guy does with mini bikes, go-karts, that kind of stuff. The first thing I got was I think I got a little Briggs & Stratton, like that one right there, like the piston I showed you, off of an edger. I got a frame for a mini bike. I strapped that thing. I had no brakes. All my shoes had holes, and that was the first thing I had, and I was tearing around in that. And then I got a YZ80, an RM80 Suzuki, and and the cops back then, they'd give chase and they'd chase you home, and my dad just got so tired of it that the last thing I had was that RM80, and he threw it in the back of his truck, and I never saw it again. I grew up with Warren and Billy Lane. When I moved from New Jersey, I moved to Miami, and we wound up at the same high school. Billy's a little bit younger than Warren and I. Warren and I in the same grade, and yeah. But they've been cool since day one, man. I can't lie. Those guys they're who they are. Wound up, getting my first motorcycle, real motorcycle, was a GPZ 550 when I was in high school. I worked at a Burger King, and across the street was a Kawasaki dealership. Cash a check, walk over to the place, and give the guy my whole paycheck. When I paid it off, I picked it up and I kept it at a friend's house. So I had a motorcycle in high school that my parents didn't know till my dad caught me on it. Then he told me, you should just bring it home. I joined the Navy 1986. I believe I was 19 at that time, 18 or 19. My first duty station was in Orlando, Florida. My chief had a Harley Davidson there, and he had an old FLH, and he would ride this thing in his uniform every day. He just looked so cool coming in, just went to work. I'm like, man. I wound up picking one up, and when I was in Portsmouth, got a 67 Sportster with a magneto. Don't recommend it. My first Harley was 1989. I've never been without a Harley since. After Desert Storm, I guess I got extended. It was probably almost 5.5, almost 6 years. In 1982, Miami was really wasn't as busy, but we just had the Mario boat lift had just happened. A lot of drugs, like the whole cocaine cowboy thing was a real thing, at that time there. After Miami Vice hit, Miami Vice changed Miami forever. People were coming to Miami from Germany, from France, because they were just getting the reruns from Miami Vice, and they thought they were going to, go there and see these shootouts in the street, I guess, or it became that show on its own, and that's Miami. If you go to South Beach now, it's not even remotely what it used to be like. It used to be so much cooler. Now it's just so packed that with so much commercial stuff, all the bars there were you had the whiskey, you had just all these cool bars, the Clevelander. They were cool back then. All those places have since become commercialized, and they're owned by big conglomerates and stuff, so it's not the same. As a matter of fact, Warren had his shop on South Beach. It was by an old egg factory, I think. Yeah, by the egg factory. Try getting a place in South Beach now. You'd probably pay, for 1,000 square feet, you'd probably pay $15,000 a month. My parents, they came from Cuba. My grandparents are all born in Spain. He was the youngest of 12. He was 12 brothers and sisters. He was the youngest. He was born in 1900. So they were in the Canary Islands. They did all the tobacco trade. That's what their family did in Spain. When he was probably like a year or two old, part of his family went to Cuba, because that's cigar land, tobacco land, and some of his brothers and sisters they went to Tampa and to Key West. My dad moved to New York City in 1959, right when Castro took over. My dad was in the Army, so it wouldn't have ended well for him at that time. My grandfather back then gave him $60, 60 American dollars, and they put him on a plane, and he knew nobody, knew nothing, didn't speak the language. He had to worked his ass off. He's a butcher, so he was in the meatpacking district there in New York, and retired from that union. He was young, and was able to move us, and then he went to work for Publix as a butcher and was there forever too. So, but yeah, so for me, it's whenever anybody wants to be negative about how great this country is, I beg to differ, man. My mom was a hairstylist, really, but she did that kind of on the weekends out of the house and that kind of stuff. But she worked at a place called Buchler Instruments, which was out of Fort Lee, New Jersey. All the electrical boards, she would sit there literally, and that's what she did all day, was solder, boards. I wanted to learn how to solder to like put my radio in or do something on my car. She sat there and she told me, I was trying to drop the solder on top of the wire. She's like, no, because you put the flux on here. And she goes, and just be patient. I have her soldering iron in my toolbox. It's old cork style, But yeah, I mean, she taught me how to solder, and I owe her that, and unfortunately I lost her this year. I've always been into cars and bikes. I mean, even in high school, I started with a 66 Mustang, the same car I met my wife in. My dad, he was a butcher, but my dad never paid. He was a cheap bastard, so he didn't pay anybody anything to do anything. So if there was a brake job to be done, he did it. If there was a top end on his Jeep to be done, he did it. He didn't pay anybody. If I was helping him work on something and I wasn't doing it the way he exactly told me to do it, I'd know. Never let me quit anything either. The man I am today, everything that I've done in my life, with as tough and a pain in the ass as my dad has been at times, I owe him. I never had the money growing up if I wanted something and I wanted it to run. My first car was actually a 65 Super Sport Impala. That was my aunt's car. He said that the engine was blown. She was going to junk the car. I said, don't junk it, I'll take it. So me and my buddy, we went to her house. I'll never forget, we pushed it from her house to my house. I was in auto mechanics class, and I was like, I'll ask the teacher what's wrong with it. I brought him into the classroom, and it became a class project. Took everything home without knowing what the hell I was doing, with some guidance of my dad, but pulled the hood off so I could sit in the car, and so we set everything up, points were gapped, everything was ready to go, fired it up, and it ran. So that was my car. That was my first car. I traded that for that 66 Mustang. My dad wanted to kill me because he really liked that car. Me and my roommate picked up a 1989 Sportster. We each did. It was an 89, 883. And they were hard to get. I had to get it at the Navy Exchange. That's when Daytona became a thing for me, because I came and I picked up the bike from Dick Farmer's Harley Davidson here. And I was like, oh, man, look at this. Look at all these people, So that wasn't the last of it. When I got out of the Navy, I was broke. I had sold everything because, it was hard finding a job, when you get out. Once I got on my feet, I met my wife, 92. And shortly after I met her, I wound up picking up a Sportster. It was like a 1980. I traded that Sportster to this guy he tells me, no, I have a shovel head. He was an old timer. I was dying for a big twin. I was like, I had the Sportster, and I was like, man, I wish I could get a big twin. And I had no money to buy one. So he goes, oh, I have an FLH. He goes, it's a 72. If you want to trade, I'll trade you, but I can't give you no money. I said, it's all right. The guy had a storage unit. He tells me, hey, man, this bike's been sitting since Hurricane Andrew, 1992. Today, it would fit in like as the perfect motorcycle. But back then, it was just like, I was like, man, this thing is dirty. The paint's peeling off. It was that light blue, so it almost looked green from the gas, like just dripping all over it. We got in the back of the truck, and I was like, never been happier. I was so happy that I told my friend, drive, I'm going to sit back here, because that way it doesn't fall over. And he's like, man, I don't think you can hurt that thing. So I went to the shop called Heaven Cycle that's in Miami, and I bought a battery. I told, man, I need a carb rebuild kit. Got a set of points, put the points in, cleaned the gas tanks out, took all the gas, all the old gas, all that stuff. I fired this thing up, and it was tuck, 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 and it just started. It was like the happiest. I go, man, I got a big twin. I got a big bike now. I ride it to Peterson South when they were at their old location. Down there is a Harley Davidson dealership. My buddies worked over there. It was right before Daytona, 99. I was like, man, yeah, you guys are going to Daytona? Man, I wish I could go. So then this one guy, he's from like Boston or Rhode Island or something. He goes, Ray, if you don't go, you ain't got no hot. You ain't got no heart, Ray. You ain't got no heart. Ride that thing. That resonated. You ain't got no heart. I got plenty of heart, man. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, we met in front of that dealership. And dude, I will not lie. I lost spot lamps. You know those tanks are notorious for leaking on the inside, right? Well, all this gas is all over my crotch. And I'm like just riding, going like, whoa. The first thing I did when I got there was like just clean myself off because it was just gas everywhere. We took those tanks off while we were there, put JB Weld, did whatever we had to just to slow down the leaking because that's how I got here. I wound up painting that bike myself, red and white. I restored it like it looked, dude, just clean and beautiful. My career, I retired Miami, I was in law enforcement there for 23 years. I wanted to be a fireman. And if I could do it all over, I'd probably be a fireman because that's what I really, really wanted to do. It was a natural thing for me. I was already a corpsman, in the Navy, and it's a natural progression for me. But when you're recently married, you got a kid coming. I was not making very good money. Thank God my wife at that time was making good money. When I finally got hired and I went to the academy and I did all those things, I was like, God, what a bunch of dorks. I was like, these people are so uptight. It's like, wow, this is not me. But then I found a couple of guys that were like me, that had motorcycle interest and hot rod interest, and that made it okay. You talk to my wife and you ask her what I've done, how, things that I've done, or she can't tell you because I never brought that shit home. I worked in the inner cities, and I would get invited into some of these houses to go eat. I knew all their kids. I knew their cousins. I knew if I saw this kid somewhere that he wasn't supposed to be, I knew where he was supposed to be. As a kid, I never really had... I feared my dad so much that my interaction with law enforcement was really only when I moved to Florida. I'll never forget, Adrian Mealy, her dad was Officer Mealy. He was the beat cop on my street. And there was another guy, Joe DePiro in New Jersey. He actually was in my little league, he was the commentator, he was the guy that, he ran that little league. And those guys were pillars in my community, When you're off work, be a normal citizen. That's it. Even if I wasn't a cop, if I saw somebody getting robbed or I saw somebody getting their ass beat that, was helpless, I'm still going to intervene, whether I was a cop or not. Didn't matter. Pride, integrity, and guts. Yeah. That's what the cops turned it into. That's not really what it meant. But, I go to work and I have a set of rules I got to go by and things I got to do. Now I'm going to go be a normal dude, but now this is what I enjoy. This is what I want to do. So I don't want to mix ever. The same reason that all the time that I did that, people wanted me to be a motorman. And I said, absolutely not. I said, I won't do it. It's like, well, why not? It's a natural thing for you. You're a motorcycle guy. I go, precisely. This bench came from my garage in Miami. My toolboxes came from there. I had cars at the time too. So I had my 49 Ford and I had different cars. And I never really had the space to work. So when I retired down there and we moved up here, I said, look, first thing I want a house that has a decent sized yard, okay, where I could have a shop in the backyard. I wasn't buying a shop, I was buying a house. So the house had to be right. I would go to pull the permit and they tell me, well, it's all good, but you can't have a 12 by 24 shed there. It can't be any bigger than 150 square feet. This is what you're in. 10 this way, 14 that way. It's kind of like a Ripley's Believe It or Not, like everything's shrunk down. That's what I was telling you about the dog, but small lathe, small drill press. When it's cold as hell out here, and it's, you get condensation and stuff, from the heat. I don't have a space heater in here, as you can see, and if it rains in there, the water just kind of rolls back here. So outside of it just being small, I do everything. I can do it all here. I've considered moving out of here into my garage. Stuff that I could do, like changing a tire or something. I got my scissor jack over there, and how we're sitting in here with that door closed, you know, after a long day, come in here and just, I'd be in here till 3 o'clock in the morning. I would be running my music. The tools, I buy a ton of shit from Harbor Freight, I'm not going to lie. I needed a lathe, I went and I got one. You know, I needed a TIG welder, I went and I bought one. You know, I've had my share of cool bikes, you know, that were just bikes that were sort of stock, you know, but they were nice shovel heads, you know, and I have a pan head that's my forever bike. Not a bike that I built, but that Warren built for me, you know the bike. I mean, if you look around here, everything has a story for sure, but until you, like, somebody points it out, you don't realize it. At the corner down there, that Jersey tag was my dad's tag for his Jeep. And all these tags here are all my cars when I was a kid. And then, of course, you look over here and you have, I got some of the, I don't have much wall space, but I have a little bit of everything that's important to me, you know. I mean, these are just shows like from last year that I won and stuff like that. The Dennis Kirk garage build from last year. I haven't really brought that other stuff. I'm going to have to start putting them up here. This was probably the best Sons of Speed, which was the first Sons of Speed for me anyway. Warren, you know, is a special cat to me, man. I mean, we've been friends for a long time, and that's why that hangs there. And then, of course, Grimy and Steven, you know, two dear friends, great guys. I remember going to shops, you know, when I was younger, and I see all these old guys with all their stickers and shit. I go, man, this sticker slapper, what the hell is this guy doing? Stickers everywhere. Well, I get it now. Where are we going to be 20 years from now, 15 years from now, 10 years from now? I remember when I was sitting here, you know, with Chris or whatever, and hopefully I'll have a bigger garage by then anyway. You'll find me back here with no motorcycle, turn on my music. I'll sit back here with a cigar. This is my happy place. This came out of one of the Roush shops in Mooresville. I have a wheel here from one of Billy's, I think it was actually his first build. It was that Frankie's bike that he did. It was an Easy Rider, I think. It was a blue and white bike. I'm grateful. I thank God every day that he's given me the opportunity, the ability, the knowledge, the life, you know, and the means to be able to have what I do have. It may not be a lot, but it's more than a lot of people have, you know, and I've been in both places. You know, anything that I've ever liked, you know, I've always like said, I'm going to explore that, and I'm going to make myself, you know, good at it. I'll always stay in my lane. You know, I know where my strong points are. I know where my weak points are, and I think we all have them. And like I told you, and there's a certain small group of people that can do it all, and they're out there, and God bless them. I mean, they can do it all, you know, but as we go along, we learn, and hopefully, you know, you make whatever you do, you make the next one better than the last. And that should be your ultimate goal. You know, it's just kind of like keep your style, keep your thing, keep your rhythm going. All I want, really, if I do anything like that, I could reach somebody that would be like, hey man, look, if you want to do it, just do it. You don't have to be the best fabricator, you don't have to be the best designer, you don't have to be the best mechanic, you don't have to be the best welder, you don't have to be the best anything. Just make sure that what you do is done with self-pride, that you're going to be proud of it when you're done, that you don't take shortcuts, and that it's done the right way. Just do it right. I'm Ray Llanes from Ormond Beach, Florida, and I'm a Dennis Kirk garage builder.